So a little bird tells me that you've got a new record coming out.
That is true. That is very true, and I'm quite excited about it, to be honest.
Really? That
Yeah,
doesn't
I am.
surprise me.
Can you tell? It's been a long time in the making, about 5 years. So yeah, I'm excited.
Well, I just wanted to chat about it a little bit because I know that you've kind of put your heart and soul into this, and yeah, you've been. So this is Innotet Volume 2,
Yes.
and I know that you've been working with these guys for a long time now. Fill me in a little bit on the background of this project and where it stems from and how we arrived at where we are now with this new release.
Yeah, so I mean, as you know, Tom, all great ideas start at the pub, and that was where this actually kind of begun, where I first met Innes at a lovely pub called the Arch Inn in Ullapool at the Ullapool Guitar Festival, and I mentioned to him over a pint that I was quite interested in exploring string quartet arrangements around my pieces, because it's something that I'd started myself back when I was at university, but I came up against these kind of stumbling blocks along the way where I could do it, I could get the notes on the page, but it was all quite dull. Like I was just taking the guitar part and just spreading it across the quartet. So I needed someone who really understood that, and Innes was that guy. And I talked to him about it, and he said, yeah, just give it a try. And he assembled to try this thing out like a proper supergroup of Scottish musicians. Seonaid Aitken on violin 1, Innes took violin 2, Patsy Reid on viola, and Alice Allen on cello, who are all in their, in their individual worlds, just utterly wonderful musicians, as you know. And we started on a track of mine called Emma, which is kind of steeped in my own Scottish heritage anyway, felt like a nice place to start. And as soon as Innes sent me his first draft of the arrangement, I was like, okay, here we go. This is already like exactly the kind of thing that I was looking forward to exploring. And we got up into a studio. This was back in, I guess, maybe 2017, I think. 2017, 2018, that kind of time.
Yeah.
And recorded the first single, which was Emma. And I can still remember kind of waiting for the flight home and listening to like a rough kind of mix of that recording and thinking, man, this is quite exciting. Like, this is exactly what I'd always kind of dreamt of musically. So that happened, and we debuted that piece up at the Ullapool Guitar Festival, where the idea was first born, and the response was amazing, and we just loved working together. So we thought, okay, an album is the natural next step, and that's how Volume 1 came about, taking a selection of 10 of my solos, Innes working on the arrangements. We collaborated on those, went up to the studio in Glasgow, Glowworm Studios, and recorded Volume 1. And that was in 2019, and we got a few gigs at the Ullapool Guitar Festival and Celtic Connections, and again just loved that. And Volume 1 was named Volume 1 for a reason, because it kind of lit a fire beneath me, because I was determined that this project had legs, and it could really kind of go, and I knew that we would learn a lot from the first one that I'd love to take into a Volume 2, and you can't just release a Volume 1, that's just silly. It's got to be followed up, right? And that's where we find ourselves today with Volume 2, in a similar process of picking a selection of tunes that I'd written between Volume 1 and now, and Innes spinning his magic, and us heading up to Glasgow at Glowworm Studios to record it. And I couldn't be happy with it, to be honest. It's a real buzz to hear it come together.
Because this record, the pieces are mainly from the miniatures, your miniatures album, right?
That's right. So we've got miniatures, features quite a few tunes from that. We've also got a couple of singles that I released as singles, solo singles, which was The Botanist and Jupiter, and also a track from Rain on Shingling Bridge, the title track of that one. So it kind of picked and choose. Oh, and also a community composition, which is great.
Yes.
That project, which I really enjoyed, writing pieces inspired by people's suggestions online. And the first one of those with us now, I thought it'd be really nice just to kind of quote that project in the album, because it's kind of what it was all about. It's about trying to like draw together the kind of all of the solo parts of what I do, and then bring them together under that kind of lovely Innotet umbrella. So it was nice to kind of look at those pieces again in a fresh way.
So before we kind of get too deep into the weeds about individual tracks and composition and that kind of thing, What were it was clear that you wanted to do a volume 2 and perhaps further volumes in the future. What was the direction, or what was the intention with this record? Did you want it to? Yeah, what did you want it to be? Was it going to be a standalone piece? Was it going to be a follow-on? What was the idea between the volume 2, aside from this is fun, I want to do this again?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reason I was interested in the instrumentation as a whole anyway is that I love the idea of a string quartet with guitar, but crucially what I really was interested in is how the guitar could sit amongst that ensemble and move away from my kind of route one approach of a guitar piece with kind of nice and gentle string accompaniment kind of underneath it. What I really wanted was, and Ines did a great job of this, and everyone involved did, of getting the guitar to sit amongst that kind of texture. And sometimes the strings come to the foreground, sometimes the guitar comes to the foreground, so that everyone has rooms to stretch their legs a little bit. And that is actually really quite difficult to do. And I think we did it really well in Volume 1. I was very happy with that, but I thought we could do more here. And that was kind of the inspiration behind wanting to kind of do a couple of them, because I kind of knew that it's like a bit of a learning process, and you never want to just sit back and go, jobs are good, and you want to just kind of keep pushing forward and see what else you can bring to it. And that was one of the lovely things about Volume 2, is that we had the process down, like from Volume 1. We knew how to work together. We knew what it was going to be like in the studio together. But we learned a lot about the process of Volume 1, which we then took into Volume 2. So that's what I was really excited about, was diving into that way of getting the instrumentation to work. Because the pieces, they exist as solo guitar pieces, right? You can listen to the solo versions, and that's fine. And the whole point of this is not just to be the solo versions, again, with strings in the background of them. They want to feel like almost kind of new pieces, and Ines was not afraid to bring new ideas into the table, whether that be like some interesting new melodies or different harmonies or rhythmic ideas, all of this stuff. Those are the moments that I really found to be the most magical, and who knows, Volume 3 could be a whole other thing, but for now I'm just really over the moon with how Volume 2 came together. It's just the most fun I've had in the studio, for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the guitars.
Yes.
What obviously you were using your Model M Juno quite a lot in this session, but what other instruments were you playing in these sessions?
So most of Volume 2 was recorded, as you say, on this guitar right here, which is that beautiful Model M you so kindly made for me, which was just great to play with in the studio, because we knew right from the offset that we wanted to create the best sounding and best quality sound that we could, and indeed the record label who we were collaborating with, Verter, their end goal was the best vinyl that could be produced. So we knew right from that everything that was being used was the best quality, lots of beautiful analog gear and beautiful microphones and everything else. So when we were first testing out that guitar in front of those mics, and I was hearing some of in the control room, I was like, man, honestly, it's never sounded better, which was just wonderful. And so there was that one, and then I wanted to have a little bit of variety in there. And on 3 of the tracks, I use that guitar you can see over my shoulder hanging up there, which is my filed Ariel, which is a little parlor guitar. Very different sound and very different response. Both have redwood tops, but the body sizes and shape and all the way that they've been constructed obviously gives them an entirely different kind of sonic characteristic. And it was actually really interesting because we recorded all of the ones on the Model M first, all of the tracks with the Model M first, and then we moved to the Ariel for the final 3 tracks to record on that one. And what was really interesting is that the quartet had got so used to the sound and response of one guitar, because I'd used that basically throughout rehearsals as well. When we moved to this one, there was a bit of an adjustment phase, getting used to, because they were zeroing in so much on how I was leading the playing, and then suddenly when a different sonic palette is produced, it's like, okay, whoa, I need to kind of almost realign myself within this. So they were making adjustments, And even things like subtle things like intonation is such a tough thing when you've got like a fretted instrument and a bunch of fretless instruments. So like the subtle difference in intonation between the two instruments as well, we had to zero in on, because it was different, slightly. But that slight difference, obviously, look, if you're performing, no one would ever know, but this is a record that needs to stand up to repeat listenings.
Yes.
So, just all of those little fine details were really interesting to work through, and the guys did a wonderful job at that. But I loved using both of these guitars because they're both very special to me, and it felt really nice to get them on the record.
What was your favourite moment from the session?
Good question. My favourite moments were always when, first of all, like the first rehearsals were always really special because you finally start hearing the dots on the page come to life and actually sounding real rather than kind of like Sibelius MIDI files, which aren't exactly inspiring. But then it's that kind of thing where Seonaid, Innes, Patsy and Alice would be able to kind of start adding their own ideas into the arrangements, and moments of improvisation, moments of embellishment, moments of articulation, all of this stuff. And to pluck one of those out of the air, there's this moment at the very end of the album on the last track, Rain on Shingling Bridge, at the end, where I'm doing a lot of those kind of harmonics and doing the taps, and the strings of the two violins and the viola doing this very delicate kind of beautiful kind of textural playing, leaving me and Alice to go at it. And Innes had deliberately left space for Alice to improvise a bit, and she just created this gorgeous melody. Like, it's not particularly long, like it's not like a massive drawn out like solo or anything like that, but it just out of nowhere came this kind of gorgeous thing, which is beautiful. It's like, Alice, you're happy just to kind of try things? You tried a few things, and it was just like magic. So all of those moments, the real moments of surprise, were where you get those real magical moments, and they're scattered throughout the album. But when you hear it happening in real time, it's very exciting, and all of the musicians involved were just so capable of that kind of thing.
Besides the difficulties that you've mentioned with intonation and things like that, what were some of the hurdles that you had to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was concerned about, which is something that's just a part of my playing, is my gratuitous use of phrasing, right? So I will, in pieces that I can do it in, which is quite a lot of my music, really, push and pull, the timing of things. And that's great when you're playing on your own, but when you're playing with other musicians, they have to read that. And so I was very conscious of that. And when I first started rehearsing with them, I was playing way more straight rhythmically than I normally would do, because I was kind of quite aware of wanting to not basically irritate them with my kind of weird phrasing. But then very quickly, they got more and more comfortable with that. And Seonaid particularly, I was raised, so I was in a little booth, right, to get to the separation between the two, but glass so you could see. But
because you didn't do that last time, did you?
No. So last time I had the kind of acoustic baffles in front of me.
Yeah.
Up to about here, so they could kind of see about that, which actually wasn't ideal, because it wasn't my face that they needed to see, but actually Seonaid particularly as violin one, she really needed to see my right hand, because my right hand was what was kind of governing certain elements of timing, pauses and phrasing. So she zeroed in on that and was able to read all of these little nuances, and I was like, am I taking this too far? Am I phrasing it too much here? Is it being a bit annoying? And she was like, no, go for it. You just do whatever you want to do and I'll follow. And she did. And the rest of the quartet followed in suit, and it was just amazing, because it's never nice when you're recording and you feel like you have to, I don't know, almost like rein yourself in a bit, if that makes sense. Play safely. I liked the ability to just throw everything in the kitchen sink at things, and they were there always on point, which was just, so good, man. so good.
Who mixed and produced the record?
So mixing was done by Andrea Gobbi. He was also the recording engineer for us at glowworm, and he was just amazing. After we had spent 5 days recording, took a day off and then went into the studio control room with Andrea to do the mixing, and Innes was there kind of remotely, and seeing Andrea work and how patient he was at kind of getting all of these details right, because of exactly what I was saying previously, you know, about getting the guitar and the strings to work in this kind of interesting way where it's not just the guitar always here. That would be easy if the guitar was always there, but as I said, that wasn't the idea. So right from the word go, with the arrangements, that was a consideration, how the arrangements worked, how the playing worked, and then how the mixing worked. So I mean, really just trying to get everything to fit in a really nice way where everything, you know, swelled in the right places, and there were certain instruments that needed to kind of bubble up at certain times and come down. All of this kind of stuff was, yeah, it's amazing to witness someone who's a real expert in that kind of work their magic, because, you know, it's a different world to the one that I exist in. And whenever you sit next to someone who's just like incredibly skilled at what they do, I just, you know, sit back and just admire his ability to zero in on things and to go, oh, that frequency, and I was like, oh yes, I guess so, that frequency, and then he just zeroes in, you know, just gets it to kind of sit nicely. So yeah, Andrea, I mean, producing wise, I mean, Andrea, Innes and myself all kind of were in the room together making those decisions, which was really, really great, because you got to have other pairs of ears on this stuff, I think. And I remember very fondly, like after a day of mixing, I would take the tracks that we'd mixed and I would put them into my headphones and just walk around the streets of Glasgow at night, just listening and having a couple of interesting interactions with locals along the way. But it was, yeah, the whole process was just so joyous because of the people involved, and Andrea was certainly a massive part of that.
So, you know, I've listened to a few of the tracks that you've sent through. In fact, did you send me the whole? I can't remember if you sent me the whole thing, but I've listened to a lot of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have to say that this record feels, first of all, it has a very cinematic feel to it. It feels like very filmic in the kind of the way that it's been scored, but it feels very much like I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but it feels like a much more mature record, and it feels like a real development, and you can almost sense the growth and the development of each of the musicians, and the way that the pieces have been written and composed. You can sense the growth of all the people involved.
Yeah, man. Well, that's really cool to hear. In
that record, you know, and I feel like, you know, I think there's always the temptation whenever you try something new. You know, you kind of want to it's very easy to have this like kind of almost like overexcitement. And again, this I don't want this to come across in the wrong way, but you know, I felt like the first Innotet record was full of excitement, and there was lots of kind of it felt very exploratory. It felt a little bit experimental. Whereas this record, to my albeit very uneducated ear, feels much more kind of grounded and cohesive and confident in itself. If that, I don't know if any of that rings true to you.
I mean, it rings true to me like 100%, because it's something that I talk about with students a lot. Actually, is like this whole thing about artistic intention when composing, and how when I first started writing music on the guitar, I didn't really have any artistic intention. All I was doing was trying to prove myself as a guitarist. And over the many, many years that I've been writing music, slowly but surely, the kind of artistic part of it becomes more and more important. And with that comes kind of confidence in those artistic decisions, you know. And I'm glad that comes across in Volume 2, because it certainly feels like that to me.
Yeah, it really does come across.
Because there's a lot of kind of uncertainty in creation, you know. You've got to try things. and it's all a journey, and you never know, some things will work, some things won't, and that's great. That's part of the process. And every time you do something, you learn a little bit more from it, you gain a bit of confidence from it.
Absolutely.
And you move forward. So the whole thing is all about just that journey, I suppose, of where the music's come from and how it's developed. And you know, it was a fair amount of time between the Volume 1 and Volume 2, you know, a good 5 years, and I recorded and released a lot than that. And obviously all the other musicians, you know, they were fabulous in Volume 1, but they've only got better somehow as well. So that's it. And just little things, I mean, how we decided to mix and master the album, that all of those decisions were made in a different way in Volume 2, and I really think that was very helpful, because I love the fact that I have the confidence now to not worry about, you know, proving myself as a guitar player. It's like, that's not really what this is about. It's about the music, you know.
Yeah.
And as a result, I'm very happy with the way that the guitar sits in this record as part of that texture. If we were having this conversation, you know, back when I was in my, you know, early 20s or something, it would have been a different story. You know, I would have been like, guitar, you know, crank that guitar up. Yeah. Everyone needs to hear me. But it's kind of, a lot has happened since then for it to be not that anymore, which feels good. It feels nice, you know, and it's been a really fun journey that has, it's interesting to look back as well and kind of listen, because I did a lot of that in the preparation for Volume 2, listen back at Volume 1 and how that was recorded and how it was played and everything else. And things have changed a bit since then, which it's nice to hear in the music.
Fantastic, man. Well, I know how much work's gone into it, and you know, I'm really looking forward to getting my complimentary copy of the record.
Absolutely, man. Of course. I shall make that happen. You know, you can just ignore. You just ignore the invoice enclosed. You know, don't worry.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Tom. It's been a pleasure chatting, mate. And thanks so much.